welcome to another episode of Communication is an Art, where I will take you through various guests on my show that all sit in different parts of the communication world and different aspects to help you become comfortable in what you're talking about and how you are interacting with other people. I am so excited to have my guest on the show today. And so if you're watching this on YouTube, you're seeing the full uncut version. If you're listening to this on one of the streaming platforms, you'll be able to hear more of a curated piece, but I am not skipping any information, especially since I get to invite Christopher Johnson as my guest today. So, all transparency, Christopher and I have known each other for about 3-4 years yet. Since like the beginning of the pandemic, there was a group of people who somehow all came together. I'm going to vote it's all through Brenda Meller, who is also in a guest on my podcast. I'm going to vote that she is the fulcrum that have brought us all together and really created this group of people who support each other. And so today, Christopher from Clear Communications is going to talk about, you see that bright-eyed, he is going to talk about being a Zoom producer. And so I'm a little bit anxious because I hope he critiques my Zoom, our program, well, and talking about storytelling and all these different things. So first, Christopher, tell us a little bit about your path to here.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on, Pam. My path to here. So my undergrad degree is actually in broadcasting.
Very
However,
nice.
I spent most of my working career working IT. At the start of the pandemic, I got laid off from my IT job. And as I'm looking for the next big opportunity, I saw a gap that I could fill. The gap was people's comfort with technology and broadcasting. So right at the start of the pandemic, everyone stumbled into Zoom. And I say stumbled because there were a lot of apprehensions on a lot of different people's, and their experience was, it's like, wait a second, Zoom, all right, that's really broadcasting and IT. That combines where I am. Okay, this is a good fit.
Yeah, it absolutely, and it's a perfect fit for you because you can calmly bring people through their trepidation and their nerves to get everybody to the right place. If Christopher's voice is a bit familiar, you sometimes hear him on the Ann Arbor channel for public radio. And I always like to listen. So his voice may be a little familiar. Watch for him there.
Thank you so much for listening.
Of course. I support my friends. I mean, shouldn't we be?
Absolutely.
Isn't that the key to life, right? The key to ongoing friendships, career relationships, all those kind of things we hope to support. So tell me what the biggest apprehension is from people, and I'm going to two-part question, and also like how you solve that for people so that by the time they're on screen, it's going smoothly.
Okay. People's biggest apprehension is, what if something goes wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
My day today. Yes.
But here's the thing. Things do go wrong. It's fine. What we do is plan to prepare for just in case something goes wrong. But we also spend a lot of time focusing on, all right, so if everything goes right, this is what's going to happen. And we do that by designing the virtual event with purpose in mind. Why are people here? What is the impact that you want them to walk away with? What is the outcome that you desire from this event. When
Yeah.
you walk in and set those things up, then the event itself is so much smoother.
Yeah. It's true. It's the preparation. I have run really big events, as have you. And always people say, "You're so calm. How are you so calm?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that is so funny that you say that, because if you knew what my heart was fluttering, but it's because I have all this on paper. I know exactly what I'm doing." One of the things I did early, when at my first job, I ran conventions with high school kids of like 5 to 800 teenagers who all were taller than me and looked older than me, especially those 17 and 18-year-old boys who then I had to say, "What are you doing?" But one of the things I learned after the first event was I actually brought my father with for the big hotel conventions, and he had a list of every room we were going to be in, breakouts or master rooms, and his full job was to go into those rooms, make sure the lights worked, make sure the microphone worked, make sure the doors were open. It changed everything. One little piece that made my life complete. Plus, he knew I'd yell at him if he didn't do it well. So there was that.
Yeah, that's a great point. A run of show. So
Yes.
every good event has a run of show that details what happens when and who's responsible for what.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's the same in person or in-person events, as well as virtual events, as well as hybrid events. Who's responsible for what? What's the flow? What is it timed out to? If you have a planned 90-minute session and you're trying to fit 10 speakers in there,
Huh.
maybe rethink this. Maybe this is going to be a 2-day session as opposed to just a 90-minute session,
Right.
or
Or
panel discussions.
or
Like, oh,
less speakers.
yes, exactly. So match what you want to happen with the time available and the technology available, and make sure everything fits. So if you're going to have, a number of speakers, one of the things that I work with before the event ever happens, okay, we're all polished professionals now, but just in case someone goes long, what do you want to happen?
Yeah.
So who
That,
has the hook? That's the big question.
that's very funny that you say if someone goes long. Because usually, as the showrunner, you already know who's going to go wrong, who's going to go long. It's just like I have a friend, I don't blame her when something really has to start on time. If she tells me 10 minutes earlier, I can live with that because then I'll be on time because she knows me and I know her. And so that's fine. And we all have those things. But if you know that in advance, you know how to accommodate it.
Exactly. And hey, things can and do change on the fly. I've been working an event where a speaker suddenly didn't show up. All right, how are we going to fill that space? Or uh, they went way short. They had 10 minutes and they went 4. It's like, oh, okay. So we have a little bit of a buffer. Here's how we can play with the time we have remaining.
Right. And nobody minds ending early.
No one minds ending early, but if you have, so for some of these events, um, it'll be an all-day session where different speakers start at exactly a certain time. So this speaker is going to start at noon. If someone ends early, you can't start that next speaker until noon. So
Right.
you have to, make sure everyone's aware. It's like, hey, you know, let's take a few more minutes for Q&A and make sure everyone's comfortable with the environment. Make sure, all right, so I noticed that no one was using the raise hand feature. We moved it to the toolbar just so you could do that. So if you click on the raise hand feature, we'll be happy to call on you in the order that you raised your hand. There's no need to throw elbows and move to, and no.
Right.
Using the raise hand feature will keep you in the order that you raised your hand. And
And it's a great time for Q&As or takeaways. It doesn't
yeah,
even need to be Q&As, it can be share your best takeaway from this morning.
Exactly.
And it can be so pre-programmed that nobody at the other end of their computer or the other end of their chair even knows it wasn't a planned piece.
Exactly. Reminders like that, as well as, hey, what did you learn? You know how you can help our presenters out sharing what you learned on social. Here's the link to the organization.
Right.
And take a photo. You can either take a photo with your camera because we know what's in the room with you.
Right.
Take a photo of the screen, share something that you learned. It helps the organization and the speakers.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying in terms of have that already. It's kind of like your B-roll, right?
Exactly.
You've
Exactly.
got 10 things. Um, I have, when I worked with kids, it was okay, it's time to do some jumping jacks. I see you're falling asleep. Let's all get up and do some jumping jacks. Use a few minutes doing that. I always had this song game that the kids loved, but what they didn't know is the only time we used it was when there was a break that I didn't want them to disappear on. I don't think I bet you those kids who are, by the way, now like 55 to 60, but they're still my kids. But I bet if you ask them if they knew that was filler content, nobody would say yes.
Exactly.
For them, it was just an activity that just came up next. And that's really what you're talking about, which is so interesting. So how do you help the the person who's putting on something with lots of faces and lots of boxes and a lot of juggling pieces?
Well, it's a multi-phase process. So the first step, what platform do you want to do this on? Zoom meeting, Zoom webinar. And I explain what the difference is. So Zoom meeting, everyone sees each other and you can interact with them all at any point. Zoom webinar. Zoom webinar, you're telling the attendees they can show up, cameras off, because they will never be on screen. The engagement, that's what you have to bring to it yourself, you and the speakers. So if you all want to have an engaging conversation, make sure that you do that because you will only be seeing one another. You will not see the audience at all.
Oh, okay.
So webinar, you don't see the audience. Meeting, you see everybody.
I wish there was a hybrid, but there isn't.
Well, you know what? You can have those hybrids depending on what you mean by that. Um,
What I mean is, you can't see anyone unless you intentionally, during that B roll, we're calling it that filler time, you want to.
well, kind of. Here's what you can do. You
Okay, everybody listen.
so you as the event producer, event host, when you have host or co-host capabilities on the webinar, you will see the full audience. You'll see all of the panelists, and then you'll also see the attendees on another tab. You
Ah,
can move someone from an attendee to a panelist. It's like, hey, I just noticed that we have a very special guest in the audience today. Let's see if we can convince them to come up and join us as a panelist.
what a brilliant idea. Okay.
Now, with and you can still do some. Zoom has expanded the capabilities of webinars, so you can have some. You can have greater interaction. Now,
Okay.
if you're talking hybrids between a virtual event and an in-person event, yeah, that is absolutely doable. The key thing to remember there is both audience need to be top of mind, or at least feel that they are. Neither one wants to feel like they are an afterthought. Hey, we stuck a camera in the back of the room. That should be good, right?
Yeah.
No. You know,
I would say
both
that happens 90% of the time, by the way.
exactly. Plan how you're going to engage both audiences. Make
Yeah.
it fun for both. A buddy of mine, he does a lot of hybrid events where there is in person and online, and he has told me, hey, sometimes people in person get a little bit jealous because the online folk look like they're having more fun. It's like, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, because they're sipping their coffee and they're doing their own thing and whatever.
Well,
Um,
I mean, because he plans engagements
ah,
online to have it's like, wait a sec, we don't get to do that? No, no, the breakout rooms, we're all gonna stay in the same room here, but
this is
online,
our breakout, right?
yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So let's move a little bit over to the idea of storytelling and communications and
Okay.
technology and all those things because I think that's what I mean. You shine at everything you do. I'll just give you that as a plug. So if you are needing someone to help you to be successful at this, Christopher Johnson is your person. His information will be on the in the descriptions. But tell us about storytelling because I think you just shine. Your voice just like gets there, and it
Thank
just
you.
makes it all beautiful.
The words tell me a story. They're magic. I mean, they captivated us as children when someone, all right, going back a couple years to when I was a child,
Just a couple.
just a couple, people who can tell a story well, they kept your attention. When you have an adult or someone who's reading the story to you and they are engaged with it, it is not a flat monotone. All
Right.
right, here's what happened, then that next, and the end. Everyone slept happily ever after. Wait, no, no. You have to tell a story. You need vocal variety with that. It's still magic as adults, but we have to find that connection. So we can deliver a whole bunch of information and it can be very dry. Hey, here's a chart with all the information that I gathered about this topic. Here you go.
Yeah. And then you can stay home and just read the chart.
People will be bored with that.
Yeah.
However, all right, I looked up all this data. Did you know that according to and you start introducing the data in the form of a story, people will remember it. Dr. Ralph Bunche from Detroit,
Yes.
first African American to win the Nobel Peace Prize. He says if you want to wrap up an idea, you need to tell a story about a person.
Mm,
So,
very interesting.
yeah, stories have that ability to draw us in. And then what happened? Wow.
Yes. Well, that is the public radio theory of I sat in my car till the end of the moth hour, or I sat in the car till the end of this American life. I needed to hear the end. It didn't work well enough. And even, with podcasts, I listen to, I say that my escape is the real murder podcast. Those people laugh at me. They're like, you drive home at 11 o'clock at night and you listen to murder podcasts. And I'm like, well, I need to relax. that, that's my thing. But it's about a story. It draws you in. It's how you think of that compelling need to know the end.
Exactly. I mean, we look for story everywhere. Everyone has a favorite show that they will keep watching.
Over and
Netflix will do,
over.
yeah. Are you still watching? Yes, yes, I wanna see the next episode.
Right.
Or story, no matter how old you are, it always works to captivate us.
Yeah. I remember when my mother was very ill toward the end of her life. The article, I think, in Vanity Fair came out about who Deep Throat was from the Watergate era. And if you know, I think it was in Vanity Fair, maybe not, but whatever magazine it was in, it was probably 40 pages long. And I read her the entire thing out loud. I just said to her, because I knew that was such a revelation, that was such a secret, that she would have that last piece. That, for maybe I think for her too, but for me, it was like such a wrap up And such a great time for us together. I would often say, "Are you asleep? I can stop reading now." And she's like, "No, no, no, I'm listening. I know exactly what you're telling me." And my voice would be sore. And I'm like, "Okay, we'll fit it. We'll keep reading tomorrow." But it was like this compelling story.
Mhm.
How are we going to figure this out and figure it out together? And that's a story, is figuring it out, even though you know the end of it and I don't. When you tell a story, it's we're still figuring it out together.
Exactly. And see, and that's one of the things I work on with the presenters that I work with. It's like they may have a lot of facts and figures, but what I tell them to remember is right for the ear. So when you practice your presentation, and you should practice your
Yes.
presentation, right for the ear. They are not going to read the facts and figures while you're giving this presentation. That'll be for afterwards. So that's supplementary material. But if you write for the ear so that they don't, it's like, wait a second, you can tell a story with numbers, fine, but write for the ear so that you are using those numbers to the best possible use.
Yeah. Yeah. We always know. You always know when it's reading those numbers off of a slide deck. You just want to, crawl away.
Yeah,
I also, when someone's doing a presentation, I like to tell them to have their own plant in the audience toward the back, someone they know, who kind of puts up their hand when everybody else is starts to look at their phones or leave the room, and just go, phone. And that says to the person who's speaking, I need to change it up. I have to re-engage. Let me figure this out, and on the fly. If you're a good presenter, you know how to re-engage, which
exactly.
is an important piece of storytelling when you're getting into the minutia.
It is. And I view that also as part of the job of a co host or Zoom producer. So
Yes.
while the presenter is focused on delivering the material, I can look at the engagement of the audience.
Yes.
So I can interrupt and I remind them, like before the event happens. All right. So are there questions that you want to make sure that get asked? If there's not a question, fine. If I see people looking puzzled, looking as if they're not getting it, I will interject. Excuse me, could you go over that point once again? Because it seems like people are not fully grasping that
Right.
concept.
Or that point you just made was so important. Will you please repeat it?
Exactly. Yeah. Either
Yeah.
one of those, or, the, and the other half of that, as a method of preparation, I always have a backup copy of all the slides.
Right.
So I know what's coming. I know where they are.
Yeah.
And I can see, all right, well, there he's building up. Okay. Yep, there's the payoff. All right. So
Do you forward the slides for someone, or do they do it themselves?
the easy answer is yes,
Okay.
whichever is required. Uh,
Okay.
my preference, all right, it works
Between you and
wonderfully.
me.
Well, between you and I, is uh, I prefer the presenter to operate their own slides. However, things happen, and that's fine, and I'm happy to do it. What I try and avoid is a situation where the presenter is saying, next slide, next slide, next slide. If we can work in a cadence, it's like I know the material they're going to deliver. So I can hear, it's like, okay, yep, now it's time for that next slide. So it looks as if we have been rehearsing this it looks fine for the audience. They may not even know who is operating the slides. They just know the whole presentation worked. And
Right.
that's all they need to know.
Sure. I worked backstage in high school on the plays. And I remember when I was in ninth grade, so it was my first year. I can tell you exactly the name of the backdrop the ninth grade, like the newbies were painting. It was called Paddington Green, and it was in Oliver. And it was like the back with the trees and the flowers. And I remember the um, art teacher, who is a Facebook friend of mine still. the drama teacher, taking this group of us to the back of the theater and saying, "Okay, which leaf did you just spend a half hour on?" And we're kind of pointing. He's like, "Right, you don't know. You just need to make it work. It needs to look good from the outside. And you don't need to spend an hour on each little leaf to perfection." And if you ask anyone that I came up with in theater that question, they too will say to you, "Oh, Paddington Green, we all know it taught us." But it was a life lesson. It wasn't just about that backdrop, it was about how we present and what the takeaways are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And see, another lesson that's adjacent to that.
Mhm.
Hey, technology happens. Sometimes technology operates in a way that, well, is less than desirable. What's the plan just in case? If you dwell on the mistake, well, you're inviting the audience to sit down with you and dwell away on that mistake.
Yes.
If you just plow relentlessly ahead, they go with you. People will forgive a whole host of things. They'll just remember it's like, wow, you know what? Oh, wait, was there a glitch? I don't recall, but she was really good.
But if there was, I don't remember it.
Exactly. So if
So
there, when technology happens, just keep moving forward.
yeah, I have been on a computer since I don't know 1980. I had an Apple, not an Apple II, not a Macintosh. I had an Apple, and in those days, nobody knew what they were doing. It was fight or flight. And I have said to people since then, I'm still bigger than the computer. I can throw it out the window and it can't throw me out the window. And that is my attitude toward technology. I'll get through it. I'm going to be the bigger person in this and it'll just happen. We'll get there. We'll do it
Exactly.
together, but we'll figure it out.
Exactly.
So,
You know,
this is
yeah.
really interesting. So, tell me a little bit. We're coming to the wrap up. Believe it or not, we've spoken almost a half hour.
Wow.
I know, right? And it's a great half hour we've been speaking for. I think people really learned a lot and like I said, there'll be opportunities to reach out to you because your contact information will be at the bottom of the stream wherever we're streaming from or on YouTube. And so tell us I know you talked about it a little before, but tell us the main question you get and solve.
The main question is it goes back again to what if something goes wrong? However, through preparation, because it seems a lot of people are not comfortable making presentations, whether in person or online. So the combination of public speaking and technology
Right.
throws people off. But what I tell them to do is to relax. Hey, you don't have to worry about the technology. I've got you covered.
Oh wow, for people who are doing big presentations, that is key. That is just key.
Exactly. And for the technology part of it, giving people a few simple guidelines. Hey, as your co-host or as your virtual event producer, you can always look to me for the answer. Hey, it looks like uh, this person is having a little bit of trouble with this presenter is having trouble with their camera, with their microphone. I will work with them to help them out so that it does not become a distraction during the actual event. For some presenters, what I've done is they've been too nervous to present live,
Ah.
so we've recorded it. And all right, here's a secret.
Oh, I like secrets.
I tell them to wear the same outfit so that during the Q&A, no one else knows it was recorded.
Brilliant.
So I'll record their presentation, just me and the speaker. And then when it gets to that point in the program, I will press play. And they will be at the event interacting in the chat.
Sure.
And it gets to Q&A, and it's like, "Hey, do are there any other questions?" And they
And yeah, and you can go from, like, showing the presentation to the full screen of the person, and they don't know there's a difference.
exactly.
Just make sure your background stays. My background always says "M Go Blue," just saying.
Wow. What what school could you be
I
representing?
don't know, but it's a school that's going to the Sweet 16. It depends
Yes,
when you're
they
listening
are.
to this, but we are going again to the Sweet 16. I'm hoping to buy a new t-shirt this year. So, um, this has been really, really interesting. I think that, you know, sometimes there are things that you can't fix, like my screen has been blinking and I will eventually fix it. I don't know why it's happening, but I'm not letting it slow me down. And if you're listening, you didn't even know it. And then there are things that you need to reach out and get help for. And so if we were only doing this as a live session, I would have said to you, we need to get on the phone, on the Zoom beforehand or on the platform beforehand, and you need to help me because you are the key. Whether I was interviewing you today or you were guesting today or not, I know that you would be a help for me. So
Thank you.
I think this has been fabulous. I love that every podcast you are can all listen to gives you a little different slice of how we communicate, how we go about our day to make things better for us and the other person. Today it's the viewing audience, but it's also the person listening to the story. And so those are my takeaways from today. I hope you all have takeaways and let us know because that's how we can continue to do these things. So with that, Christopher, I thank you for joining me on Communication is an Art, the podcast. And I hope to see you soon in person, in real life.
Likewise, Pam. Thank you.
Bye bye, everyone.